Hello, this is Hiram Monk Enoch.
This is Deacon Joseph Swaden doing Orthodox Apologetics, Orthodox Apoologetics for
Sorry.
January 2nd New Style. So we're here, and we're talking about a couple of things here, and I'm just I'm always offering critiques of stuff, but I'm not going to do that just yet. In any case, today is a kind of an open forum thing. So if you're in the Orthodox Apologetics War Room /War Zone, you should be able to see a Google link, a Hangouts link in the comments for this that would allow you to actually enter into the discussion yourself if you wanted to.
I'll put it in the I'll put it in the chat right now, actually.
Yeah, okay. So this is one of those we're gonna interact live if you so dare. So let's
Okay, there it is.
okay. So
all right. So Father Joseph, do people actually want to read the Church Fathers, or do they want to read books about the Church Fathers?
I'll tell you, I personally think, and this is correct. I mean, we may disagree here. I think that how I'm gonna totally digress for a second, but it's totally relevant. You know how college is at this point in many cases it's the costs of college are so high and the return on investment is really low. Okay. Well, basically, it was a cottage industry that was created by private colleges, so on and so forth, and the public education system. That this kind of thinking over the decades that it was absolutely necessary that you had to have a 4-year degree from an institution. Now they're pushing for an 8-year degree. The point is, the debt's higher. People believe they need something when, in fact, they don't. Now, how am I tying this into apologetics? Well, first off, I refuse to bless academic garbage as apologetics. I refuse to, even if it sounds like pseudo intellectual guff, it's garbage. If it doesn't have a saint in it, if it takes the word saint out of someone like St. John Chrysostom's name, if it's a quote from a professor, it's trash. Complete and utter trash. And so the point is, my point here is that apologetics is fundamentally simple. And it is simple in the sense that there's one way to do it, and it works with Orthodox apologetics, and that is to learn the Bible and the Fathers, especially the Fathers. Learn the Bible through the Fathers. The point is, everything's about the Fathers of the Church, because everything goes back to the Church.
Yeah, I mean, if you when I was younger and I was reading through the pre-Nicene Church Fathers, so one of the interesting things I encountered would be, in terms of the Bible, was the enormous number of biblical quotations they were using. I think someone said that if we had no manuscripts of the Bible from the first few centuries, you could entirely reconstruct the entire Bible simply from the quotations you find in the Church Fathers.
Yeah.
So for example, like St. Justin Martyr and his dialogue with Trypho the Jew, that was basically debating the Old Testament, large passages of the Old Testament. So
exactly. And so this is my point, is that studying the Fathers helps you reinforce your ability to learn Scripture and how it's properly interpreted. Plus, you can also understand the general consensus of the Fathers. This is something that's lost upon Protestants and Roman Catholics, that there is a real consensus, and that you find occasional disagreement, but it usually gets drowned out. And so the point is, the reason why I bring this up is because of the fact that today I got an interesting question. And it was, I saw this question, we talked about Theodoret of Cyrus. And the fellow who brought it up, Kevin, I asked him to take it to the War Zone. And he's new in the faith. Congratulations, many years to you. But the point is, he felt like maybe that's, it was a bit too advanced. And I said, no, don't do that. Because my view is, smart people have the ability to parse Orthodox apologetics if they're going to the Fathers anyway. So if you're going to the Fathers anyway, there's two ways you can be misled. One of them is to confuse pseudo-intellectual stuff, confuse academia with the Fathers. When you do that, that's one way to fall. The other way to fall is to over-mysticize the Fathers to the point where everything becomes spiritual. And there is no doctrinal, there is no authoritative, there is no There are no rules. It's just spirit. What they really mean when they say that is it's just feeling. And so ultimately, both of those extremes leads to a form of crypto-papism on the over academic side, and the other one leads to a form of crypto-pietism, where you're not getting, and the worst part is then you're not getting the benefit of the fathers by falling to either side.
But this is the same problem with people who misunderstand the Holy Bible, that they either try to so-called spiritualize everything to the point where it means nothing, and they don't even look at the historical context, or they simply try to read it on their own, and that's good in a certain way, but they don't read it in the context of the church, and therefore they end up creating 4 or 5 different new religions.
Or 4 or 5,000 new religions.
Yeah, or 4 or 5,000. I mean, 4 or 5,000 new religions.
Yeah. And so ultimately, that's the biggest problem that I see when people say, when people start talking about the church fathers. Because Orthodoxy, it's a given we're going to talk about the church fathers. The problem is that, and this is largely due to ecumenism, one of the most important ways to learn from the church fathers is to learn how practice was established. It's to practically learn what the fathers were teaching. This is part of the reason why, I think we've talked about this. I don't know if we talked about this on the show before, but I think you had mentioned this, Father, where I don't know if it was St. Gregory the Great, where he was making references to liturgical actions that are used in the Western Rite, and a translator was changing them. I don't know if that was St. Gregory or who it was, to make it, or it was a life, so that it would sound more Byzantine, even though what it did was it distorted reality. What was it, a life, or what was it?
Yeah, I think it was the lives of the saints in general, under the Western saints and things. The point was that you have to translate terms exactly, and you can't just say, "Oh, this is the same as you can't say the Great Litany of the Saints is the same as the Great Ectania," because then there is a sense in their petitions, but you kind of lose some of the meaning of where they're originally placed. So you have to simply take the fathers and the lives of the saints at what they say and where they are, instead of just saying, "Well, no one's going to understand this, so let me do my own paraphrase translation," like the Living Bible, like the so-called Living Bible.
Yeah, or the Dictatus Papae.
Yeah.
The point is that ultimately that was what created Roman Catholicism, was just reforming the fathers and the scriptures into what their own image of it would be.
Okay, so do you still believe people would prefer to read the fathers or read books about the fathers?
I think if we stressed that, I think that it would definitely be a difference. And I mean, when I say we, I mean in terms of clergy. And I know there's not too many clergy listening to this show, and that's fine. But the one thing I do want to stress is that it starts at the top, because ultimately, and that's been one of the biggest problems. When I first converted to Orthodoxy, when I was working on apologetics, I cannot count the number of people, from clergy to lay people, who said, defending Orthodoxy, you shouldn't have to defend it. It defends itself spiritually. And that's a way of, what's the word? It's blessing studied ignorance, and it's a sin. What it's doing is it's avoiding an answer when you're supposed to be giving one. And so all those people, God bless them, every single one of them were wrong. Every single one of them was wrong. The reason why this happened is because of the fact that we've had 100 years of ecumenism, and we've kind of softened and made a mystical version of Orthodoxy that isn't real. And that's why there have been apologists up until the turn of the 20th century, the rise of the communist revolution, and then all of a sudden you have a bunch of people going, it's spiritual stuff. And that's wrong. So, okay, Deacon, okay, Christ Save Me. I assume this is Clint Dempsey because it looks like the same font cross. Deacon Joseph, Matt Slick will use material from his website against you on the early church fathers. I don't know what Matt Slick's going to do. I'm going to be dead honest with you. No idea. And I have no idea what the other two guys are going to do, Andrew and Beardy Guy. I have no idea what they're going to do. The point but my point has to be the same. And it has to be, and the point of apologetics is not just to defend the Orthodox faith, but to invite people through your words to the Orthodox Church. If I'm not doing that, then I'm failing. And I think that's why, last time was kind of confusing to begin with. And so, hi there, 1683. So, that's kind of where I am. So, God willing, if I'm alive tomorrow to do this debate, then that's how it's going to go. I'm not going to do. If this is Clint, I tried to follow your advice. I did try to watch a couple of these, the Roman Catholic apologists, so on and so forth. I talked about that on the previous show, and it was, and I told Father Enoch in more detail off the show. It was incredibly disappointing. Incredibly disappointing. For guys who pretend to have all the answers, Matt Slick made them look foolish. And the reason he made them look foolish is because they couldn't give an honest answer. And that's silly, because if you're looking to avoid falling into verbal traps, well, he can claim the early church fathers believed in faith alone, and every single one of his claims is not going to work. It doesn't matter because first off, here's the thing. If I make Father, I hate him. I don't want to cut you off or anything because
No, go ahead.
You're saying here he'll claim the early church fathers believed in faith alone. Great. What does that faith mean? Because you see, we're not Roman Catholics, even though you can find in the 17th century many of our dogmatic texts using the terms faith and works. They were used in a specific context, and it was to answer the question of whether faith alone saves. Just faith, sure, no one is going to deny that just faith alone can save, especially if you get hit by a car 1 second after believing or after getting baptized. The point is, we don't know about that. But what we do know is that once you do have faith, there are things you must do. You must change. You must transform. And if you don't transform, then your faith is worthless to begin with. So, the question becomes, Happy New Year, 1683. The question becomes, what does that mean? What does it mean to say faith alone saves? The fathers understood it a heck of a lot differently than guys sitting on YouTube, I'll tell you that. So I'm not really worried. No, I'm not going to do that. I already saw that he quoted some church fathers. Congratulations. Roman Catholics quote church fathers all the time. And what do? We take apart what they're saying, we look at the context, and voila, it means something else. That's literally what everyone does. You can quote the church fathers fully, or you can misquote. Orthodox Apologetics is about doing the full context. And without that full context, nothing matters.
Okay.
Let's see. The next one. Okay. What is the Orthodox interpretation of Romans 4:5-6?
Well, I can read from St. John Chrysostom's commentary in his homily 8 on the Epistle to the Romans.
Sure. Let's do that. That would
okay, so first off, Romans 4, is it verse 4:5-6? It says, to him that, let me look up the Bible verse exactly. I moved my computer to a different room, so all my books are upstairs. Okay. So verse 5 says, to him that believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly. So St. Chrysostom says, for reflect how great a thing it is to be persuaded and have full confidence that God is able on a sudden not to free a man who has lived in impiety from punishments only, but even to make him just and to count him worthy of those immortal honors. Do not then suppose that this one is lowered in that it is not reckoned unto the form of grace. For this is the very thing that makes the believer glorious, the fact of his enjoying so great grace, of his displaying so great faith, and note too that the recompense is greater, for to the former a reward is given, to the latter righteousness. Now righteousness is much greater than a reward, for righteousness is a recompense which most fully comprehends several rewards. Therefore, after proving this from Abraham, he introduces David also as giving his suffrage in favor of the statement made. What then doth David say, and whom doth he pronounce blessed? Is it him that triumphs in works, or him that hath enjoyed grace? Him that hath obtained fit pardon and a gift? And when I speak of blessedness, I mean the chiefest of all good things. For as righteousness is greater than reward, so is blessedness greater than righteousness. Having then shown that the righteousness is better, not owing to Abraham's having received it only, but also from reasonings, for he hath whereof to boast, he says, before God. He again uses another mode of showing that it is more dignified by bringing David to give his suffrage this way. For he also, he says, pronounces him blessed, who is so made righteous. So I'm not exactly sure is there a controversy in particular over this verse, or over these two verses? If you could elaborate, that might help. So what do you have to say, Father?
Well, I mean, I think, St. John's clear enough on that. The point is, the example of what was being pulled, if we could put that link up, Father, for where he...
The homily? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because all of St. Chrysostom's homilies, as we said in the last episode, all of them cover every verse of the gospel, all of the epistles. You can also find St. Augustine, same exact thing. If you go to the ccl.org/fathers website, people have laboriously transcribed that 37-volume Erdman series, which has a pretty good authoritative context for that and other passages when you're doing your biblical studies. Okay, Brian Johnson, I agree with the comment about Matt Slick. Okay, well, that's fine. I'm still not worried. Here's my concern, guys. If you really want to know what my concern is in tomorrow's debate, is that I'm going to screw it up. Now, and what I mean by that is that as a representative of the church, not just as a clergyman, but as doing apologetics, if I make a fool of myself, or if I look stupid, or if I sound like an idiot or say something rude, then I'm going to fail. If I am motivated by charity and I'm motivated in truth, I'm not worried. If I start doing lots of jokes and stuff and start laughing my head off or something, then I'll know I just screwed up the whole thing. So I'm going to try. Hi, Raul. I'm going to try and get to, by the way, on our show, we get to every question in order, so I will get to every comment, etc. We'll get to that. So that's, again, that's my biggest concern, is not even, it's not about winning or losing, because there's no such thing as winning or losing when you're talking about truth. There's either truth and there's not truth. That's all you got. So, okay, Christ save me. I assume it's Clint Deacon. He has it on his website. I would look at his material on the early church fathers before you debate him if I were you. I look at early church fathers every week. Literally, that's all I do. So I'm not really, I do other things too. I ride, share, drive. I take care of my house and my family. But when it comes to apologetics, what we do is look at church fathers. We don't read Jurgens. And I'm not trying to be offensive here, Clint. I know that, your background as a Roman Catholic. One of the things that we deal with is the fact that Roman Catholics deal with a very small subset of the fathers. And I know it seems like that's that doesn't sound right, but it is. Because in the 1800s and later, you find that there were these little compendia, these florigelia that were put together for different pieces of the faith. So in some cases, the fathers were taken out of context. So all you have to do to answer those questions is to look at the context. But then people assume that that's all there is. So what Matt is doing is he's simply doing the exact same thing that Roman Catholic apologists do before. Orthodox apologists don't think like that. We have to look at the whole thing. We're maximalist about the fathers. The fathers are everything in terms of our interpretation. So if someone says, well, what does he say here? I'm going to go to the original text and I'm going to look at what he says. That's what we do. Now, if I start looking I start mumbling and stuff, or if I take too long and people are like, oh, you're too long, and they hang up, then there's no way to win that. What are you going to do? But, that's what I would do. I'm not going to go, I don't want to turn the tables on him. I want him to learn the truth. Winning is not as important as the truth, and that is how it's going to go. Hi, fathers. What are your objections about Hinduism? Well, one of the major objections, Father, what would you say are the major objections besides it being paganism and therefore not real?
Yeah, that's the major objection. It's pagan. Hinduism, I think, can be described as late stage development of paganism. All forms of paganism eventually turn into something like Hinduism, where they have they tend to believe that matter doesn't really exist in any substantial sense. They tend to believe in transmigration of the souls. That's the reincarnation stuff. For example, I think the Hindus technically believe that all their deities are manifestations of some kind of abstract essence, God. I don't know if they would even call it God or such. I mean, in Egyptian paganism kind of was transforming into that before it was replaced. It was defeated, basically.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I thought was interesting is, contrary to the whole, Hare Krishna kind of assumption of, Hinduism being a super peaceful religion, just look Wikipedia violence against Christians in India. Hindus are just as well known for religious violence as, any other group, and they'll beat up Christians too. So I don't think that their beliefs are any better than other pagans or than Islamic, apostates, etc. So I mean, but the point is, no. I mean, I think it's just not a true faith or a good faith, and I just don't see a purpose to it. So that's how I feel about it. What time and where is this debate? Tomorrow on apologeticslive.com. It is going to be a YouTube live debate kind of thing. I don't know if it can be called formally a debate. Basically, I'm going on their show, and I am kind of answering Matt Slick because he hung up last time. He said it's because of too many people talking in chat. I don't know or care why he hung up. I'll just answer him. So that's tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, 1683 Vienna. Will you be uploading long apologetics? When will you be uploading long apologetic videos on different topics, Father Joseph? I don't know. Hopefully soon. I mean, we're coming up on the end of the Nativity fast. Monday is the Nativity. Hopefully we'll have some more free time and we'll get to that. Chap, do you two have a podcast? Also, you should show your beautiful faces. I feel very uncomfortable with that, and we should just go to the next comment. Protestants think those verses prove faith alone. That's fine, but what does that faith mean? What does it mean? And if you don't have that answer, then you're going to run into problems. And, even you could take Romans, which is arguably the strongest of, the books for their arguments, which you want to say. And I could point to the difficulty of the perfectibility of the Christian life. So you tell me what faith alone means. Does it just mean I say I believe in Jesus and all of a sudden I'm perfectly good? No, you're not. And St. Paul doesn't think that. Nobody thinks that until, you get to, Joel Osteen. And so let's see. Raw, I said hi. Good to see you. What's more stupid to follow in your personal opinions? Protestantism or Catholicism? I think that stupid is all over the world. There's stupid Orthodox. But if you're asking which one's more of the church, I would say that neither of them is the church. So I don't see them as, especially since one comes from the other, I don't see them as fundamentally that different. And so, the being of the church has its own authority. And it's an authority that they don't have, and they lost when the Romans lost grace in the 11th century. Wow, it's getting okay. There's more stuff popping up. It's getting faster now. Okay, Christ save me, Clanto Deacon. But Matt already has those quotes from those early church fathers on his website. You can then prove to him from other quotes that they don't believe in faith alone. He may not even bring them up. Again, we're speaking about the future. I have no idea. He may want to just talk about the Bible and not talk about the fathers at all. No idea. I have to be ready for that. I have to be ready for a lot of possibilities. I guess I could look at the website. I don't know what else. You know what? We'll look at the website. Well, why not? Okay. Let's just, we'll go to Carm's website. Okay. And, why not? Let's take a look here. Okay. Where is this church father saying? Father, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay. So I don't see any church fathers section here. Maybe I'm just missing it. Yeah, I don't see any church fathers. Maybe if I search it, church fathers. So I'll just type in fathers. Let's see what we got. Call anyone father besides God. Early church fathers quotes by topic. Oh God, this feels like Catholic answers all over again. Let's take a look. Okay, on the Apocrypha. Okay. Let's see. St. Athanasius. You see, the Apocrypha is not really an issue because there are different fathers who, held to different canons because of the language, etc. So let's get to a better one. Here's one. Eucharist. Communion supper. Let's see. Augustine says the elements are a resemblance of the actual body of blood. So he's saying that St. Augustine teaches that the elements are a resemblance of the body and blood. Was not Christ here? We're going to look at these here. I'm going to put these links up so, Father, you can see it too. This is kind of amusing to say the least. Okay, so for sacrifice had some point. Okay, they bear the likeness. Therefore, a certain manner, the sacrament of Christ's body is Christ's body, and the sacrament in the same manner, the sacrament of faith is faith. Okay, that's not actually saying that they're not the body and blood. Let's see. Regarding John 6:63, not said Christ not to eat the body and blood which you see, referring to Christ saying to the disciples, but he instructed them, understand you are not to eat this body which you see, nor to drink this blood that they shall crucify me will pour forth. Yeah, that literally means don't be a cannibal. Okay, that's okay. Oh. This is Augustine says Christ's words in John 6 in his body and blood are figurative. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. However, it seems to. Okay. All right. Why do I have a feeling that this is done incorrectly? Let's see. Wine and bread. These are very strange. Very, very poorly cut out. All right.
What book is he referring to? What work of St. Augustine exactly?
In that particular one where he says, let me see, that one is on Christian doctrine. That's 3:16-24. So he's we're in book 3, chapter 16. Okay, let's take that one as an example. You have to do this, and this is one of the problems that, again, you deal with Roman Catholic apologists all the time. You see this all the time. But you actually have to go back. We go and we look at the actual context in this one. So let's go to St. Augustine.
You said book 3, chapter 16?
I believe that's it. It says 3:16:24. So I'm going to assume that that's book 3, chapter 16, verse 24.
Okay.
Once you have it, if you want to post a link, you can. We'll get to the next question real quick. Okay, Brian Johnson, I would say too, Matt will define salvation as a moment in time juridical proclamation. I think it's important for him to understand the Orthodox definition of salvation. Well, hopefully, God willing, I can explain it to him. 1683 Vienna, thank you, no problem. Cyprian 700. Why do you speak well of Father Peter hears on the show when he is an avid promoter of the heretic John Romanides? If yours was a trustworthy Orthodox authority, he would not be enamored with Romanides. I can think of many true Orthodox bodies who like Romanides. I am not, Father Peter has I've spoken to him on the matter. I think Father Enoch has as well. And basically, it's more along the lines of he does not want to speak ill of the dead. I don't know where that, it's funny. Was it you I was talking to about that, Father? Speaking ill of the dead and whether or not that should be a thing?
Well, the problem is if they died and they were like attacking the church constantly, that's a little bit different. I think the problem is that in Greece with new calendars, there's just so many people that are enamored with Romanides. If you talk bad about them, you're going to lose your friends. That's why a lot of these people, that's the real reason. I mean, I don't, and I think that's a wrong thing to do.
Well, I think that a lot of it comes down to, again, Romanides kind of created this whole idea, this great conspiracy of Roman, the Greeks being the true Romans and stuff like that, that people can't get away from that. And they were like, it's just such a great idea that they don't notice that he's saying crackpot things on other issues. So I get Father Peter's hesitance to not want to say something negative about Romanides. There's a few people I would know that are like that. But, when it comes right down to it, somebody's got to call out a crackpot for being a crackpot.
Okay.
Okay, Rawl says, Deacon, don't let Matt run you or you will end up answering far more questions. Ask him a question for each question if you can. He respects that. I'm going to try to speak to him honestly. I mean, we spoke literally for 2 minutes before he hung up. And so I have no idea. He might hang up on me again. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen. I think with all the, the chatter about this thing is because of the fact that, I think he may feel like, he has to defend himself. I don't want him to feel like uncomfortable, but I want him to understand our position. And so that's what's going to happen. Why does Cyprian 7, why does Deacon Joseph repeatedly say J. Dyer was received into Orthodoxy? He was received into heretical and schismatic world Orthodoxy? No. I don't have that sort of discussion on the show, man. I just don't. I'm not going to do it. When the topic is Orthodox Apologetics and the focus is on the Church Fathers, whether World Orthodox or not, we all know who the Church Fathers are. And if you're doing it right, you're going to be reading the Church Fathers. And if you're nourished by the Church Fathers, you're going to get an Orthodox understanding. I don't know what J. Dyer was received into. I do not know what parish he is in. I am not a fan of the stuff that he puts out because it seems like he's always reading professors as opposed to reading fathers. I just don't care that much about J. Dyer. I mean, I'm sure he's a good guy. I don't know. I mean, what's it called? I don't know. Don't know what to say about it. I'm not going to get into the whole true versus world Orthodox thing. If Father Enoch wants to do that, you're welcome to, Father. I feel like it's a sidetrack from the show, and no offense, since this is one true Orthodox to another, honestly, I feel like we wasted a whole lot of time and opportunities turning around and attacking not just world Orthodoxy, but each other. And for all intents and purposes, because all we do is attack each other, we're not defending the faith itself. And that is why there are thousands of Protestant jurisdictions and groups and belief systems, because we're not defending the church. What we are doing is we are arguing for our gang. And our gang is never that big. It will not help the cause of Orthodoxy. Father, do you disagree?
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, I believe true Orthodoxy is Orthodoxy, but I don't really know much about Mr. Dyer, so
yeah.
I don't really care too much about these people. Everybody keeps on asking us about him like it's some kind of big deal.
We know him.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really care that much.
All right, let's see. Next, Cyprian said, I answered Father Enoch's attempts to refute the geocentric view of the Fathers in the Divine Scriptures in the comments under the December 20th show. People can see them there. I have no idea what he's talking about, Father.
Okay.
Do you know what? I don't understand. Did you try to refute the geocentric view of the Fathers?
Someone asked me, I think Cyprian made the point that you have to believe in geocentrism to be Orthodox, and if you don't, you're a heretic.
Oh, wait, that's right. You're Craig. I forgot. Okay. Yeah.
So I pointed out that St. John of Kronstadt and St. Theophan the Recluse did not believe in the geocentric view, and that did not make them heretics.
Yeah, this is the whole Syngenis thing again. Okay, that's fine.
The problem, of course, is that if Mr. Cyprian, whoever he is, could simply point out a single synod, a true Orthodox synod, that says you have to be geocentric, and if you don't, you're excommunicated. I like to know who his bishop is so I can contact him and ask his bishop, do you have to believe in geocentricism?
Yeah.
If people don't tell me the name of their bishop so I can ask them if this is their doctrine,
then why should we believe anything?
Then I don't believe anything they say, and oftentimes they're more a provocateur of some sort.
Yeah, usually. And he did not explain why we should prefer few exceptions of saints not far removed from us over views of many others, Basil, Chrysostom, Gregory. It looks like you're running an attack line here, Craig. I mean, we've seen this before. And so, first off, you can cite those many fathers. You can. And you can also cite where they said it is authoritative that we must believe in geocentrism. Because guess what? 90% of the time, what you're going to find is that a father in that time believed that the earth was the center of the universe, which is, by the way, a perfectly logical thing to believe if we're the only people who can talk. Then, it's not, you're making a jump there. Here's another example. How many of those fathers that you mentioned believe in germ theory? None of them, because miasma theory was the general teaching of the science of the time. And so you will see fathers referring to vapors. But guess what? Vapors aren't real. They're not scientific.
Well, there's also the fact that many of the fathers also believed in the humor theory of bodily misfunction. You'd have the four humors, just like you'd have the miasma. Now, what is true is that these were functionally equivalent explanations about, kind of descriptions of how things can happen.
Right.
But technically having an overabundance of blood or overabundance of black bile did not cause, certain types of diseases like, fevers and things like that. But it didn't mean they didn't understand there was a concept of fever.
Well,
for example, they understood there was a concept of some of the fathers that talk about that people could in fact have due to humor imbalance to some sort of mental problems. They were mistaken in attributing it to humors like bile, but they were not mistaken in the concept that there could be physical processes. Just like, for example, the fathers were not mistaken in accepting, obviously, just like everybody else, the then predominant Ptolemaic astronomical views. Because and technically Galileo wasn't right. Galileo's view was that the sun was the center of the universe, and that's not true.
It's also wrong.
And his view was the sun didn't move, which is not true either. So
the point I'm trying to make is,
and the other fact is, I've never seen a single synod of orthodoxy in modern time, true orthodoxy, that has said you have to believe in geocentrism or you are excommunicated. If you can point out if they can tell me who these bishops are, I would actually like to talk to them and say, do you excommunicate people in your churches if they say they believe the earth in some sense revolves around the sun?
No, you mean the sun revolves around the earth, or excommunicate people? Yeah, you got it right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it would be great, but we don't know who it is. The idea is basically this sort of line of anonymous attack, and it's a long line. We'll continue. We'll go piece by piece. Thank you for giving us a show topic there, Craig. The point is that you will find fathers not saying things inside.
Okay, Cyprian says at the bottom. He says the Bible says the earth does not move and the sun orbits. You're comparing apples and oranges. Bible. Okay, Cyprian, I'm asking you, who is your bishop? What synod teaches what you're teaching? What true Orthodox bishop teaches this? So I can contact him and say, is geocentrism your doctrine? It's to such a point where you will excommunicate people or depose priests who do not teach geocentrism. Okay. Because if they're not going to depose them or excommunicate them, then it's a matter of opinion.
Yeah. And ultimately, there are matters of opinion in the church. They've always existed. That's what the commonatory is used for.
It's like, for example, a lot of fathers, because they were accepting the Greek science at the time, did not believe in things like that there were people on the antipodes. That is kind of the other side of the earth. And they believe that because
antipodes, not the antipopes.
The antipodes.
Oh, antipodes. Sorry about that. Okay.
And that had to do with a perfectly rational belief at the time, from all the evidence, that you could not cross the torrential zones, kind of like the equator area, because it was reasoned that the closer you got to the equator, the hotter it became, and therefore it must be boiling, and therefore no one could cross it because they'd be dead. And so, for example, in the 700s, I think there was a Saint Virgilius of Salzburg, who was an Irish saint who became bishop in Germany, who was accused by Saint Boniface of heresy of Germany. And Saint Boniface accused him of heresy because Saint Virgilius says something like, well, there are people probably on the other continents, below the equator. And Saint Boniface interpreted this to be a heresy because he thought that, well, that's the only way that's possible is if you're saying there's like a polygenesis, that there were multiple atoms created around the planet or something like that. Well, Saint Virgilius didn't say that. Saint Virgilius' view was that he believed you actually could cross the equator, and that all the descendants of humans that were living on those other continents were in fact human. And the matter was all cleared up at a council in Rome in the 750s. So even though up to that period, people had kind of thought, well, if you claim anybody's living underneath the below the equator, you must really be something must be wrong or whatever. So, I mean, again, I've not seen any modern Orthodox teachers or saints or synods of bishops saying that you have to believe in geocentrism, and if you don't believe it, you're excommunicated or you're deposed.
So if you'd like to tell us, we'd be glad to have a discussion with them.
I mean, I'll have them on if they're, who these teachers are.
Well, now they're getting more personal. The next one says, in week 4 of your program, why did you have Hieromonk Patrick Ramsey serve as a guest host? Is he not with Rocor MP? Do the hosts recognize Rocor MP as Orthodox? Well, in the first place, my regular co-host, Hieromonk Enoch, was in the Philippines. So I didn't have anyone else to host with. I actually was going to ask other apologists, and someone suggested Father Patrick. And since he'd been a fairly nice guy up to then on the various Facebook fora that, both Father Enoch and I are on, I didn't have too much of an issue with it. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. The show went on, and that's it. I didn't think it was a big deal. I still don't. And if you disagree with that, Craig, start your own show.
No, we don't recognize Rocor MP as Orthodox.
Well, yeah, okay. that's fine, but that doesn't mean we can't have him on the show. We don't recognize it's the same. It's a Father Peter Here's question over. Why does Deacon Joseph promote the Judaizer Donald Trump, who is not even a Christian? Why does Deacon Joseph promote Andrew Yang for president in 2020? In the first place, I do not promote the Judaizer Donald Trump. The president of the United States is the president. I did vote for him. I do support a lot of what he does. I don't support everything he does because that's not how American politics work. I like Andrew Yang's idea of getting back the money that organizations like Google and Facebook have largely stolen from the American public through EULAs. That said, I do not believe anyone is required to like Donald Trump. I know a lot of people who don't and think he's evil, including members of my own family. And a lot of people think that Andrew Yang is a loser. And that's fine. People thought the same thing about Ron Paul. I also supported him. The problem is that American politics is basically mob rule. I'm not a big fan of it, but if you're going to live in a mob rule, then you may as well pick the mob that seems the most in accordance with your beliefs. And if my beliefs are that I like an Orthodox king, but I don't have one, then the next best thing based on world history would be a government that leaves me alone. And that's basically my position. Let's see. Rawl says, Matt really likes keeping someone on the ropes. Not from what I've seen. He just likes asking questions. I like questions. Let's see here. Gregory Dramaturgas. Jay Dyer talks all the time about how evil and heretical the EP is. He holds to Russian Orthodoxy MP, I think. We don't know Jay Dyer. I don't know how to do this. Okay. Deacon, in the search window, type early church fathers and faith alone. It doesn't matter because we'll just open up each one of these things, and I'm not worried. I'm not worried. First off, you have to have a proper understanding of faith to begin with. I would say that you must have the Orthodox faith alone, and any other faith will not work. The point is, guess what? Most people don't. So, let's see. Point out a synod or council that did the same for evolution. Well, we don't believe in evolution, so why would that make a difference? I mean, I don't believe in evolution. Father Enoch, I believe in micro evolution, but that stuff is proven. That's observable. That's basically like dog breeding. I mean, not anything else. Okay. Oh, here's one. Father, are you there?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay. Fathers, as true Orthodox, use the Western rites. What do you recommend for the Divine Office private prayer?
Divine Office. Well, first off, the Divine Office is not private prayer. The Divine Office are the hours of the public prayer to the church.
Maybe I think we should clarify that, because that's one of the things that basically that Roman Catholicism kind of created, the idea of this office in a little book that you kind of say in your corner.
Yeah, that had to do with the fact that in the even past the schism in the proto and in the later stages of the Roman Catholic papism, they retained the concept that clergy had to sing the divine hours, divine office each day. The problem came, so-called problem came, that many clergy could not find the time for that, supposedly. So what they said they had to do is they simply had to read through the hours in a quiet voice, in a very fast and hushed, in a kind of hushed voice and very fast pace. And so that created the concept of a very, there were concepts of the breviary before, but that created the concept of the breviary as a kind of a private prayer book when it is not. So I think if you're asking for a private prayer book that is Orthodox Western Rite, we print one, and you can find that if you go to the Western Orthodox group. I have it up there, I believe, like a PDF of it, where you can order the version we have on we put out by Lulu. They used to be the Orthodox Prayers of Old England, which we published back in 1997, but that's been out of print for nearly over 20 years now. So, but I don't know if I answered the question or what. Are you there, Father?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. I think that answered it pretty well. Let's see here. Deacon and Search Windows have early church fathers and faith alone. Well, we found early church fathers on everything. I'm sure I can find faith alone from the list he has there of like 8 or 9 topics. Point out a senator, Cyprian again. Point out a senator council that did the same for evolution. No, yeah, okay, we covered that, and we covered that private prayer. Cyprian, the Bible says the earth does not move and the sun orbits. You are comparing apples and oranges. Well, from the perspective of man, the earth does not move and the sun orbits, and the Bible was written by God-inspired men. So that's
I mean, you can certainly create a system of equations in which you place the earth as the center reference point and everything revolving around it. Now, the argument that people use is that if you use that earth as a point of reference, it just makes things a little bit more complicated in calculations. So it just simply ultimately depends on how complicated you want to make the calculations. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of silly, Craig, because, there are some points where the Bible is not acting, and in general, the Bible does not act as a science book. But, the argument that it says with this, and therefore we should interpret it that way, Christ says, I'm the door. That doesn't mean he's a literal door or that he was ever a door, but he's the door of salvation in a sense that we do not understand physically. Last I checked, Christ was God and man, not a physical door. So I think this is kind of a dopey argument when you're saying, "Oh, the Bible says this." That if the fathers didn't understand it that way, and the fathers don't really make that much of a mention of how the earth moves or doesn't move. There's simply no real, there's no claiming, strong claim. I mean, the fathers speak in dogmatic terms about lots of things. This isn't one of them. So this isn't a hill worth dying on.
The Bible does not explicitly refer to germ theory. Well, it doesn't refer to germ theory. Why would it want to refer to germ theory?
Yes. Okay. As long as you don't teach Gregory Thaumaturgus, as long as you don't teach evolution, well, we teach apologetics. I mean, we're not scientists. We know that. There are ways that science can inform the scriptures, but the Christianity must inform the scientists, and that's our focus. Christ Save Me said, I guarantee you, Deacon, that tomorrow Matt will bring up numerous quotes from the early church fathers from his website where he obviously takes them out of context, especially in Faith Alone. Again, I cannot predict the future. You cannot predict the future. Unless you are Matt Slick, we have no idea what Matt Slick is going to say. I have not denied the possibility that you're Matt Slick, but I have no idea, and I assume you don't either. Cyprian 700, do you believe that it's permissible to believe in evolution because it has not been officially condemned in council? Well, considering that evolution fundamentally denies that man was created by God, yeah, I would say that that you don't need a council to condemn it.
In fact, the canons of Carthage state Adam is the first man. In fact,
so that was technically condemned in council if you don't believe Adam was the first man.
Because I believe some of the Greek pagans taught forms of polygenesis.
Yeah, they did.
And so the church kind of encountered a lot of this whole Darwinian evolution stuff is kind of recycled ancient pagan thought.
Yeah, exactly. It is not new. Let's take a look here. Basil P., can you explain the various angelic orders? Do any of the fathers speak of angels being somehow related to stars, perhaps as their movers? I would say go to read St. Dionysius on that. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on the angelic orders. I never really focused on that. I know there are angelic orders. There's 9 angelic orders. We know that from the liturgy. We know the different kinds that they are. We know that they're all over. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking in terms of explaining them. I mean, I don't know their commanders or anything like that. I have no idea about that, to be quite honest. I think that's, there's some things that are, beyond this world.
I believe the Holy Scriptures only give us the name of the 3 archangels, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael, and the other 4 archangels we basically know from the tradition of the church. So, I mean, that's a reference to the archangels. So,
okay, so now we said, Cyprian, show me all the synods and councils that have condemned evolution. Is it true then that because it has not been synodically condemned? Once again, the Council of Carthage does in fact talk about the creation of Adam. That would literally, if you can't believe in Adam and believe in evolution, they're fundamentally impossible to reconcile.
Yes. And again, for all those who want to say you have to believe in geocentrism or you're a heretic, then I simply would ask, who is your bishop? Let me contact him and let me ask him, does what this fellow is teaching, saying you have to believe in geocentrism or you're excommunicated or deposed, is this your teaching? And if it's not their teaching, then it's simply, I'm just taking some layman who's anonymous, who's not telling me what his jurisdiction is or who his bishop is. And, then how am I supposed to take anything he says seriously? Because if his own bishops are saying you can believe the earth moves, and is he going to say they're heretics? See, that's why I don't take a lot of this stuff seriously, because no one ever actually gives examples of who the clergy are they want me to ask.
Yeah.
So,
All right, let me see here. Basil is responding to Cyprian, so yeah, I think I would agree with your statement there, Basil. Christ save me, Deacon. For example, Matt will bring up Polycarp, Saint Polycarp, to suggest Saint Polycarp held to quote faith alone. Simply prove to Matt from other quotes that Polycarp believed in a faith that has works. Okay, Clint, I don't know how I'm going to say this. You are a Roman Catholic. I do Orthodox apologetics. I'm not saying I don't appreciate your attempts to tell me how to do my job. But my suggestion to you would be to join the true church, which would be the Orthodox Church, before telling me how I'm going to answer a Protestant, who basically I see very similarly to a Roman Catholic. And I hope that that's not offensive, but I just want to be clear that I will answer Matt the way that I believe the church best wants me to do so. You know, I'm not playing the same game that you guys have played. I don't play games. Cyprian says, I did go see the YouTube show on 1220. I posted several synodical condemnations of Copernicism. See the comments underneath the YouTube stream.
hold on, let me look at the synodical. Let me see what if he's talking about the Limassol condemnation. That doesn't have to do with Copernicism.
Okay. And then Bully the Anti-Billy, hello. Okay, hello. Basil, I mean, what the various kinds of angels do, whether they play some role in ordering the cosmos. And even if we did get, we can find the patristic commentaries that have things like that, but even if we did, we'd still be dealing with the multiple dimensions of reality. I mean, we don't even know kind of what spheres they operate in. That's my point. When you're talking about the spiritual world, the natural world being so complex, adding a spiritual layer to it, even the answers we get probably wouldn't be that great, and they probably wouldn't be complete. I don't know. I don't think angels are spinning the earth. I just assume that that's the result of gravitational forces and things like that. But the point is, I mean, I imagine that there are angels there, but I imagine that they're not physically on the same plane. And then this seems like it was decided by, Raul says, this seems like it was decided by scientific evidence long ago. Well, science changes. That's the thing. And I think that's the whole point of this, is that one of the things that the fathers focus on is talking about the eternal truth, which you can find in the true church, and you can find through the fathers when they're talking about truth. But things like, the homunculus and stuff that, were the science of the time that some fathers believed in, that stuff becomes chaff. It goes away. Science changes, but the faith doesn't, which is so amazing. Okay, let's see here, Basil, but no worries. I know where to look for specifics. Awesome. We want to encourage more people to look for stuff and to get those answers. And Basil, when you find it, for anyone who was curious, put it up here so we know. Father Enoch's reviewing the comments between the December 20th show. Okay, Bully the Anti-Billy, let's be humble gentlemen. Okay, I guess. I wasn't aware I was being an arrogant gentleman.
Okay, so basically the comments, Cyprian attacks you. He says you're boorish and all the rest.
I missed that. Where he said that here?
Well, yeah, no, he's just saying it on the comments on the 1220 show.
I'm boorish. Okay, well, that's
basically, and he says that.
Well, at least you can tell my bishop, because you know who he is.
Yeah, I know. Who is your bishop, Cyprian? Tell us. And he points out a patriarchal synods of 1803 and 1819 in Constantinople condemned heliocentrism, and the ecumenical patriarch condemned the hypothesis again in 1839. Okay, give us the links and give us the text. Sergius Macarius wrote a book against it in the 1700s. I'd like to see the actual condemnations, by the way, and yeah, I'd also like to talk to you
in English, but
yeah. And I'd also like to talk to your bishops to tell me whether these condemnations, they uphold them or not. If they are indeed as you describe them.
Yeah. Gregory Thaumaturgus, this has quickly become my favorite YouTube channel. Well, thank you. Hope we continue to be helpful, if we are. Rob, but what keeps happening with science is that divine phenomena keep being described by science, not the other way around, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe if you're talking about something like thunder, but the more things science answers, the more questions pop up. And I'm not one to deny that there may be a scientific explanation for how miracles occur, specifically healings wrought on by saints. But my guess will be it's because science has found a way to determine where the soul is and how it moves. That would be my guess. And once we're at that point, hopefully we can directly communicate with God. But I think none of that's going to happen. So, in any case, it's all theoretical stuff we're talking about here. Kiprian 700. Andrew Yang is a liberal Democrat who officially supports LGBTQ. That would be all presidential candidates at this point. Abortion, that would pretty much be all presidential candidates at this point. Marijuana legalization, well, okay. I'm sorry you're not a fan. And other liberal anti-Christian positions. How can you promote him for press? Scandalous. Who are you kidding? Honestly, Kiprian, all of the people who run for president hold these stupid things. All of them. Because it's all a setup. You don't have a real choice. The reason I chose Donald Trump was largely because he was outside the system and flatly said that. And I feel my choice was successful. As for Yang, he is effectively a nobody who comes from the business sector. I already like him better than all the other Democratic candidates. So, okay, and Bully, glad you like it. Keep studying, keep listening. Kiprian, you're not qualified to teach Orthodoxy. You need to be catechized properly yourself first. Well, maybe we can go to your bishop for that. But unfortunately, you don't name who he is, because you don't have one. We continue on. Any other questions, Father?
No.
I think we're good. Oh, wait, it's already 8:56. Boy, how the time went. And tomorrow, once again, I'll be on Apologetics Live, which is the CARM group, Calvinist group, doing their YouTube thing, and we'll see how that lasts, how that goes. And Father Enoch, I ask everyone who is supportive to be there if they can. Thanks. I just don't understand why anyone should believe anything that doesn't have good evidence. Our science is what we actually know, right? Yes and no. I believe that there is power to this objective that is not always emphasized. We were created by God. We have, even in our fallen state, immense power that we're not even aware of. One thing I would suggest is if you read, there was an article about placebo studies a couple of months ago, Ron. And what it points out was that placebo was something that was kind of created to explain away the diseases that went away on their own, or with the help of the human simply being helped by a doctor. In other words, the very act of being cared for by a doctor produced enough of an autoimmune response to defeat what that was caused by. Now, this is something we're just figuring out now, so I would suggest, DuckDuckGoing that, Rawl, and finding that article. But the point is, we keep one of the great illusions of our time, especially in the age of the internet, is the assumption that we know stuff. And we know less than we ever have before. One thing we can know with certainty is what was the teaching of the Church of Jesus Christ. And we definitely want to focus on that. Okay, Kiprian, you slandered me and said I was a Kyriakos. No, you had already assumed Kyriakos was my bishop. For all we know, you're Kyriakos, Craig. I mean, we have no idea. Honestly, you wanted to leave it anonymous for many years. You have been doing this on forums. You have been doing this on different websites. It's a game to you. And we're not falling for it. Oh, you missed a good one too, Danny. And now you're asking as if you don't know. Oh, so are you admitting that Kyriakos is your bishop? Because if you're admitting Kyriakos is your bishop, and we're willing to go with that, we can point to the various things in which Kyriakos does not follow along with Orthodoxy, and why many of the priests have left him, and why there is almost no body under Kyriakos. And the reason for that is because outside of the little parishes that he maintains and the few people that he's made bishops over entire continents with little to no success is because of the fact that the beliefs that he holds are not standard, typical Orthodoxy.
Okay, so he says I've never hidden or denied it. Okay, so he's saying Kyriakos teaches you have to believe in geocentrism or you're a heretic. So, okay, well, I mean, I guess we can ask Kyriakos, I suppose.
No. I'd love to see what he says. Also about that 3-day fast. We could ask about that too. Are we doing the debate tomorrow? Yes, we are. It's going to be at apologeticslive.com at 8 p.m. Eastern. I may be a little late. Rawl, thanks for coming on. I will check out Psychogenic Death because it sounds like a band. But in any case, I will look at that, and maybe I'll have a comment on the next show. Denny, gee, I wonder who gave the thumbs down. Wait, I wonder. All right, so yeah, actually, no, I'm pretty sure that Cyprian and Truth Be Told are different people, because if Cyprian is saying here that he is Craig Crawford and a Kirakite for certain, that's more than we've seen accomplished in 9 years. As for Truth Be Told, that's Euthemios Valdez. He's out in California. He does his own thing, and I don't understand him. So thank you all. Thumbs up right back. Cyprian, did you see my icon avatar? It's an icon of the Holy Trinity with the Father depicted. Do the Karakites accept icons? Okay, so are you saying that you are a Gregorian Matthewite? And which Gregorian Matthewite group? I mean, the point is, we're talking about a tiny, tiny, tiny group of Matthewites, because the Matthewites only make up 10% of the TOC of Greece to begin with, not even, maybe 5%.
And does this Gregorian Matthewite synod you're part of teach you have to believe in geocentrism or you're a heretic?
Have they held yeah. So again, once again, if you can point to your synod teaching that geocentrism is the only true way, then we'll definitely consider your arguments. Otherwise, there are no arguments. It's 9:01, folks. Well, say a prayer for me and listen tomorrow on Apologetics Live at 8 o'clock.
All right.
Okay, well, have a great night. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for being here. And, take care. Benedicite.
Benedicite.